Good afternoon, respected faculty and delegates, and welcome back to the first day of the World Neurosciences Summit. So, we are reconvening for the post lunch session, and the first session that we are going to start with is the session on medical ethics. For this session, I would like to welcome on stage Dr. Achal Gulati, the Professor of Excellence from Maulana Azad Medical College. He has been the former president of NMC and the additional DGHS and director of GB Pant Hospitals. I would also like to welcome Dr. Minu Bajpai, the Honorable Executive Director of the NBE. And also, please welcome on stage Dr. Virendra Yadav, Civil Surgeon of Gurugram. And I would request our esteemed chairpersons to kindly introduce our speaker, Dr. Girish Tyagi.
Very good afternoon to all of you. There is one time in the day which is the sadistic time. This is the post-lunch session. It is a battle of wits between the god of sleep and god of awakening. And I'm sure that at the end of this session, the god of sleep is going to be hollowly beaten by the presentation of what Girish Tyagi is going to do. Girish is a person who wears many hats, whether it is an administrator, a clinician, IMA, DMA, Delhi Medical Council, and a person, above all, a great friend, a great human being. What he's going to talk is on how to avoid litigation. There are three ways to avoid litigation. One is wear a space suit, enter the Chandrayaan, go to the moon, settle down over there, na rahega baas, na bajegi baasuri. Second method is very simple again. Do your MBBS, do your MS, do your DM, MCH, whatever you want to do, and after that stop doing private practice, sit at home, go and open a chaat wala shop. No litigation. The third is the one which you have to be safe. Practice your medicine, but be safe while practicing medicine. Practice your medicine ethically, practice your medicine with all skills that you have, keeping up to date in knowledge, having your degree registered, having your subjects up to date, your communication skills updated, your documentation updated, and that is something which is very important, on which I think Girish is going to delve upon for the next 20 minutes or 25 minutes or whatever time Girish takes. Girish Tyagi.
Thank you, Dr. Achal for the kind words, and other chairperson, Dr. Bajpai and Dr. Yadav. My topic is how to prevent litigation, as Dr. Gulati told about the three options, and we have the only one option, and to have ethical practice. How the litigation starts, because nowadays, first of all, about the Delhi Medical Council, where I am the secretary cum registrar, we received around 35 to 40 complaints per day from different quarters, directly from the patients, from the consumer court, from the criminal court, from the high court, from the Delhi government, from the central government, from the Delhi police. If the complaint pertains to practitioner who is practicing in Delhi, and automatically the complaint come to Delhi Medical Council, and as that means around 1 to 2 complaints per day we are receiving against the doctor for the professional misconduct or negligence. And starting from that, patient is not being given a proper appointment being cancelled, the patient being harassed. So from starting from this and ultimately to the where the patient or the expired complication occur, that so all kind of complaints we received. And one thing I want to stress here, that around 60 to 70% of the complaints, there is either a lawyer or a doctor behind that complaint. And most of the time, it is not the lawyer, it is the doctor which is behind the complaint to ask the complaint, to pursue the complaint, provide literature, provide material, provide everything to see to it that the complaint is filed against that personnel, maybe because of any reason. So I'm just going the A, B, C, D, E about that litigation. A is the adverse outcome. Whenever there is a adverse outcome or an adverse event, the start of the litigation is there. Behavior Before behavior of doctor, nurse, nursing orderly, or any person who is with the patient care. C is the communication and comments of other colleagues. Communication is very important. I will go a little longer that because we at our times the communication is not of the our curriculum, but nowadays, but of course, with the Dr. Achal being the Medical Council of India and then the National Medical Commission, it has now been in the curriculum, and it is one of the important pillars to reduce the litigation. Then these are doctor-patient relationship. Once upon it was a fiduciary relationship, it was a bias relationship. Nowadays it is just a consumer and a service provider. And these also the decision-making owner, because nowadays the patient or the relatives are the aware patient. They want themselves to be involved in the treatment part, involved in all the things in which the patient care is. E is the expectations and perception of the patient. If the result of the outcome is not up to the expectation, say a patient of a stroke is there, and once he reaches the hospital or the neurologist, he thought that now he's in the safe hand and he should be get. From the doctor's point of view, he might be recovering okay, but from the patient point of view, if he is not doing the 100% work, he himself think that he is not fit or and of course financial part of course in the private sector which plays a role in the once a patient is admitted, then if there is a complication occur, then might be that longer stay at the hospital, longer stay at the ICU, then there is a financial issue is there, then of course once the financial issue is there and it is out of the budget, it starts with that litigation part. How we go ahead? First will be the aggression part from the patient or the relative, then the might be the assault or verbal assaults, start from the verbal assault, leading ultimately to the violence which we have all witnessing in the newspaper or the media. Then the media trial is, of course, media trial is very important, because once a patient relative or through any person, it goes to the media is the biggest extortionist, because they ultimately give the media trial, pronounce the judgment, they make that the doctor is guilty, doctor is convicted, leave aside whether at a medical council or any court there is investigation is started or not started, but they pronounce that doctor is guilty or convicted. Then of course blackmailing, extortion starting from the media, from the police, from the politician, from the general public, from the relatives, all these are involved in the blackmailing or extortion against the medical professionals. And of course ultimately the litigation, when whatever happened or not happened, they will ultimately file a case for the litigation part. Then what are the options for that patient or the relative? In nowadays, they can go to the civil court for tortious liability for the compensation part. From the consumer court also they can go for the compensation for deficiency in the service. Then if they can go to the criminal court if they want that doctor should be behind the bar or should be jailed, then they can go to the police or to the court for, of course, for the gross or recklessness, negligence. Then under the constitutional liability, violation of fundamental rights are there. Article 226, they can approach the High Court. Article 32, they can approach the Supreme Court. And of course, they can go to the State Medical Council or Medical Council of India, and now is the National Medical Commission for acting them in a disciplinary action, because disciplinary action can be taken by the State Medical Council or the National Medical Commission, and various legislation application under the state government or the central government, PCPND Act, MTP Act, organ transplantation, whatever the acts are available in that state or the central. If the violation is there, they can go for that. How is that litigation can be reduced? It is also in the ABCDE. A for availability, B for behavior, C for communication, D for documentation, and E for empathy. So, a brief words about all the things. Availability first is availability of manpower, method, machine, material. Availability of manpower means that doctor should be there, nurse should be there, nursing orderly should be there, or whatever so if the doctor is there and nurse is not there, and doctor prescribes something and nurse is not following that, not getting that patient, not getting treatment because of nurse being not available, or so these kind of issues will be there. And machine, of course, if the doctor has advised for CT scan or MRI or ECG or extra blood test, but if the machine is not working, and of course if there is a delay in the getting the treatment. So ultimately it will be the availability of all these things: manpower, machine, material, method. And behavior is of course very, very important, because as I told you, that behavior of not only the doctor, nurse, nursing orderly, and whosoever the treatment, if the behavior is not good or up to the patient expectation, then of course they might be by the treatment part they must be okay, but if anything happens, they will go ultimately against the medical profession also. C's communication is very, very important. LEAD, listen first of all. E, empower. A, advise to and define. And the communication should be the two-way communication, not that one-way communication. Should be communication. We should and communicate effectively to prevent error. If we are communicate effectively to the patient or the relatives, there are errors are minimized, and communicate effectively to prevent dissatisfaction. D is the documentation. Documentation is very, very important, because ultimately the case will be decided maybe at the State Medical Council or Medical Council of International Medical Council or Consumer Court or any court. Case will be decided based on the documentation or in the evidence, and evidence is always in the form of the records. So documentation very, very important. From the history point of view, physical examination, diagnostic test, diagnosis, treatment. I will go more about the documentation on the later parts. E is empathy, of course. If we are empathetic, then of course chances of litigation are very much reduced. If the litigation is there, and how to prevent litigation as well as conviction, because ultimately it will be the conviction part which will bring a bad name or to the society. So first is communication, second is documentation, third is communication of documentation, fourth is documentation of communication. So whatever we are communicating to the patient, it should be documented, and whatever we are documenting, it also should be communicated to the patient or the relatives. If it is not documented, it is presumed that it has not been done, and sloppy documentation is equal to the sloppy care in the treatment. Just about the communication documentation. In most of the time, it is seen that whatever we have done something, doctors are doing all the things, but it is not being documented. Sometimes it is seen that in one of the case, it was a ENT surgeon was a complainant. His mother was operated by a big doctor at a corporate hospital in Delhi, and of course then complication filed a complaint. And once the complaint comes to Delhi Medical Council, we called in the disciplinary committee, which is provided in the act, in which the 3 non-medical persons are there and 3 medical persons are there. 3 non-medical persons are there, 1 MLA is there, 1 eminent public man is there, 1 legal member is there. These are the 3 non-medical persons, and 3 medical persons are 1 chairman of the disciplinary committee, then 1 expert of relevant specialty, and 1 member of Delhi Medical Association. So in that particular case, when we asked the complainant to introduce, first of all, it is a protocol. So complainant who was an ENT doctor, he just submitted with folded hands कि मैं दिल्ली मेडिकल काउंसिल का शुक्रगुजार हूँ कि आपने मेरे को भगवान के दर्शन करा दिए. These are the exact words which he pronounced in the disciplinary committee. So हमें लगा कि because DMC में जो हमारा pendency of the cases रहता है, case comes after 2.5 or 3 years or so लगा कि he is commenting on the functioning of the Delhi Medical Council, that you are just making a mockery of the system and justice is not being provided. So I again asked him to, so he again told the same thing, that मैं दिल्ली मेडिकल काउंसिल का शुक्रगुजार हूँ कि आपने मेरे को भगवान के दर्शन कर दिए. So I asked, please elaborate. तो उसने कहा कि डॉक्टर साहब, जो डॉक्टर जो पद्मा अवार्डी डॉक्टर थे, ऑर्थोपेडिक सर्जन, who has operated my mother, I am seeing for the first time. तो हमारे को भी लगा नहीं कि first time, just we again asked him to elaborate. तो उसने कहा कि I am seeing, क्योंकि भगवान को मैं कभी देख नहीं सकता, तो मेरे लिए तो डॉक्टर साहब भगवान की तरह ही हैं जिन्होंने मेरी मदर को ऑपरेट करा, और I am seeing for the first time. So he told कि the diagnosis was made at Uttarakhand itself. Knee replacement was advised there. Of course, in absence of his junior team made a diagnosis and advice for knee replacement. During the surgery, of course, he was not able to go to the OT, so he was not aware that who has done the surgery. He has not seen. When we asked that, when the complication again, the post-operative period, doctor must have seen. उसने कहा, sir, I have not seen the patient. We asked him, are you with your mother? He said, most of the time I was with mother, but I have not seen. Then we asked the doctor, doctor, please tell that he is telling that in the post-operative period you have not seen the patient, and Dr. said, I was regularly seeing. We asked doctor, orthopedic surgeon who was the consultant in charge. We asked to show us in the document that you have seen the patient. Nowhere in the files it was mentioned about that signature of the doctor was not there. Nowhere it was mentioned that. Then we asked him, at least show us that notes of can be put by the junior person, but case seen by such and such person, it should be there. It was not there. So how can you document that you are seeing regularly the patient, but if it is not documented? So then वहाँ पर जो हमारे MLA साहब थे, जो 12th पास या ग्रेजुएशन होंगे, गिरते पड़ते पास होंगे, उन्होंने कहा, ये डॉक्टर साहब इतने बड़े डॉक्टर हैं, इनको कहाँ टाइम होता है साइन करने का? ये तो सिर्फ 2 जगह साइन करते हैं, या तो चेकबुक पे साइन करेंगे या आप अपने विल पे साइन करेंगे, इसके अलावा कहीं साइन नहीं करेंगे. तो दीज आर द कमेंट्स ऑफ MLA pass or legal member to a doctor who was Padma Awardee, and you can feel the humiliation in front of all those persons. So communication, documentation are very, very important. What is the importance of documentation? Documentation is important from it provides the facilitate good care. It provides the continuity of the care. It provides a method of communication with other team members, because if you are properly because nowadays the multidisciplinary team is examining the patient, or and it is seen that the MD medicine there, MD nephro is there, or neuro is there. So every person is coming at a different time, writing their notes, and maybe that they are not communicating with the other, they are not communicating with the nurse. So whatever they have written, nurse is giving the treatment. So if we are documenting properly, treatment care will be always be better. It satisfies legal and ethical obligation, and most importantly, it acts as a evidence, as I already told you. Then who is to document, what is to document, when is to document, and how is to document. A brief, very brief about that. Who is to document? Everyone who provides care to the patient is responsible for documenting the care and recommendation that have been provided, starting from the RMO, senior resident, consultant, nurse, physiotherapist, dentist, etc., etc. Whoever is involved with the treatment, he has to document whatever he is providing to the patient. Then what is to document? It is two clinical notes as well as the discharge. These are the documents which are to be documented. From the clinical notes from the patient, then relevant history, physical findings, positive, important, negative findings. Here it is, I want to convey that important negative findings are more important. If there are any important negative findings, it should be documented, apart from the positive finding itself. Then conclusion, plan of action, investigation, consultation, treatment part, information given to patient, substitution, name, signature, and most importantly, whenever you are in the rounds, or name, signature, and designation of that person should be there, because most of the time because the once case came to any hearing, it might be after the 2.5 years. So sometimes it is seen that even the OT notes which have been put by the surgeons are not able to read their own notes in front of the district committee. So then about the discharge summary is very, very important, because the discharge summary is the document which you are handing over to the patient, and it is the patient. So discharge summary, the course in the hospital, treatment, complication, investigation, whatever happened during the stay in the hospital should be mentioned in the discharge summary. Then investigation results pending to be done afterwards. About the investigation part, because CT scan or MRI scan or ultrasound scan or biopsy report is pending, it should be mentioned that you please collect such and such report on after such and such days. Because in one of the case, a patient was discharged, a biopsy was made later on. It was not mentioned that discharge when the patient went home, and after 2 to 3 months the complication occurred, and later it came out to be a cancerous one. And because the report was lying in the hospital, then he approached another hospital, and ultimately the complaint filed against that hospital, in initial hospital, because it was not mentioned the discharge summary that you have to collect that biopsy report. So it should be mentioned. Then follow-up plans and the discharge instruction. Then as soon as possible. Then how to document it? It should be a standard format should be used, like SOAP, S for subjective, that means start with the history, or objective physical examination, A, assessment of patient condition, and P, plan for further. If we are following the standard format, then of course there should not be any problem for that matter. These are the problems which falls in the documentation, that informal interactions about on the telephone, in the corridor, and the lift, then then failing to write a note or giving only the verbal orders using the phrase doing well or no change. How to improve that? Date, time, and sign after every entry. Make entries immediately or soon after care is given. Write legibly, be thorough, accurate, and objective. Used only approved abbreviations. Emphasis should be on the accuracy, relevance, completeness, timeliness. We have discussed about the inpatient record, and outpatient record is also very, very important, because outpatient record, as discharge summary is with the patient, these outpatient records are always with the patient. So we have to be very careful in documenting. In one of the cases, where the patient was a critical patient, reaches one of the hospital, it was referred to another big hospital because services was not available there. So it was mentioned in that OPD card that patient critical referred to such and such hospital. In between, the patient expired. So once the patient expired, reaches at another hospital, the MLC was made. So there was the only OPD slip in which it was mentioned that patient critical referred to such and such hospital. How can you declare a patient critical without mentioning his blood pressure, SpO2, any finding, no clinical finding, no pulse is there? So we have to be very careful in the OPD, in the outpatient record, because in it, these brief clinical findings along with the investigation reports, provisional diagnosis, any treatment and instruction follow-up should be there. Of course, there is a statutory duty for maintaining the records. Section 1.3.1 says that every physician shall maintain the medical records pertaining to his entire patient for 3 years. Section 1.3.2 says that if any record is asked for by a legal authorized representative, it should be provided within 72 hours. Section 1.3.3 about the registered medical practitioner shall maintain a medical certificate. What about the medical certificate? That we at Delhi Medical Council are receiving a number of complaints from different quarters, from the court and the police also, regarding that issue of the fake medical certificate, in which the and then the person approaches that different forums for their personal personal appearance, and ultimately it came out of the forged medical certificate issued in one of the cases. Medical rest of 365 days is being given to a patient, telling about the patient is suffering from a mental ailment. So how can a MBBS person issuing a medical certificate of 365 days? When this case came to our Delhi Medical Council the hearing, and of course then we asked कि डॉक्टर साहब ने 365 का डेज का क्यों दिया इसको? हमारे एमएलए साहब बोले कि डॉक्टर साहब तो हमारे एरिया में जब मैं मेडिकल सर्टिफिकेट लेने जाता हूँ 10 दिन का भी लेता हूँ तो मेरे से तो 100 रुपये लेता है डॉक्टर, आपने तो पैसे लिए होंगे. तो दैट डॉक्टर से नहीं उसने कहा नहीं डॉक्टर साहब बताइए कुछ तो रेट होगा आपका. The doctor in front of the discipline committee, in which the MLA, legal member, etc., and it has got a judicial power also with discipline committee. He told कि सर मेरा रेट तो 10 रुपये पर डे का है, और उसने कहा डॉक्टर साहब हिसाब से तो आपके करीब 4,000 रुपये बन गए होंगे. नहीं सर मैंने तो उसको 50% डिस्काउंट दिया था. These are the comments of which of course one of our colleagues are telling. So we have to be very careful that matter, and every document, whether on a piece of paper, whether on a letterhead, whether without a stamp, whether if it is being produced to a statutory body, it becomes a legal document. It doesn't serve any purpose that we write here and below that this certificate is not valid for medical legal purpose. It will not serve any purpose. So lastly, take home message about the do's and don'ts about the documentation. Do's about the do's. Documents should be legible. There should be timed entries signed after every entry. Make entries immediately, make objective comments, document oral communications, document informed consent, document any non-compliance. That is very, very important, because if we are asking a patient is not complying, it should be documented. If we are providing a patient should be a BiPAP or CPAP or a ventilator and they are not giving the consent, it should be documented, because once the complaint comes, then of course they will told that no, we have not been told. State objections and it. Don't use abbreviations, don't make offensive, humorous or personal marks, don't use ambiguous terms, and don't try to delete or alter the content of clinical note which looks like to be untrackable. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Tyagi. I think we have all realized that what he has underscored by giving so many clinical examples of day-to-day situations. As we have grown, I'm 75 batch MBBS entrance. We didn't see as much of litigations in my times, but as the time is approaching and we are moving into the 21st century, the incidence of litigation is 110% increase every year. Imagine what has gone wrong. We should also make a distinction between ethics and legal litigation. Ethics is we are ethically treating our patient always, but litigation has become now more and more common because there is a difference between them. And how to sort of handle that, Dr. Sahab has very clearly told the ABCD. Now let me quickly revise it so that we can expect some questions from you also. We should tell the family that this is a disease which has with a stated prognosis, which adverse events are likely to happen, and this is a disease. In fact, they should not think that, well, he's hiding something from us, or we hide actual bad prognosis from them, and their expectation would be that everything will be all right. That's one thing which is A of it, adverse events. Our behavior, we should be receptive to the queries. Families are very in anxiety. They are in panic when a patient is ill. And therefore, we should be compassionate, which we have always been. Probably, what has happened between 1975 and now, we have become less accessible. We have become busier with our either social sort of angles or whatever. Something has gone wrong because I have witnessed this in the last 3 or 4 decades. Change. What has changed? Have we changed? Probably yes. Communication. We should apprise the development. If we do an intervention which may have a wrong sort of outcome, doesn't mean litigation at all. But have we apprised the family about it? Things are going wrong. We have done a surgery, but things are now as per expectation. We have done all the things right. Every intervention has a complication. We should keep them apprised of it. Then Dr. Bhai said about communication. So obviously communication and relationship is eye contact. When there is an adverse event, there is a natural tendency, all of you would vouch for it, we avoid eye contact with the family because we feel that embarrassed. But that should be avoided. We should be connected to the family. Things are developing, not to our expectation. We are doing our best. So they know that this doctor has told us it is not in his hands anymore. It is up to them to decide, do they want to consult somebody else? So most of the time they may not do it. Most of the time they do it and come back to you again. That kind of contact, eye contact, should be there with the family. Dr. very clearly said the litigations are prompted by some doctor. And now some legal advisor in the family, some known to person would say, well, something has gone wrong. Here, his relationship with that legal person or that doctor become more important. The person who was treating him was in a more eminent position to have a good relationship. That relationship would not take away this trust. So I think keeping in touch with them, and financial, of course. I mean, finances are there. If you are in a corporate hospital or if there is a long treatment beyond the expectation, there is a pressure on the family. It is there. We should apprise them. We should be compassionate. We should try to see that this could be attenuated further. I think Doctor has told you everything. In 2012, there was a regulation in National Medical Commission that MBBS students should be apprised of legalities. But still the curriculum does not have it. If you are trying to see that the curriculum has some foundation courses on legality, the quality of care, finances, administration, that is being done. But till then, we should be on that. So I think with this, just to underscore what you have said, sir, this house is open. Any comment, Dr. Yadav, so that there must be many queries, and we will love to actually learn from the queries.
थैंक यू डॉक्टर बाजपेयी. जो आपने बात कही है 100% से भी ज़्यादा इंक्रीज है. और जो मैक्सिमम केसेस हैं आज की डेट में कंज्यूमर कोर्ट में 60 to 65% जो है वो मेडिकल नेग्लिजेंस के ऊपर है. और 12% पे जो फाइन हुआ है वो भी अगेन मेडिकल नेग्लिजेंस पे. डॉक्टर गिरीश आपने बहुत काफ़ी बातें बताई, लेकिन एक दो चीज़ें मैं पहले कहूँ इससे पहले हाउस में ओपन हो. कुछ चीज़ें मैं आप जो बोल रहे थे मैं साथ के साथ वो नोट कर रहा था, उनको ऐड कर रहा हूँ. और कुछ चीज़ें आपका डॉक्टर बाजपेयी काफ़ी एक्सपीरियंस और ये बातें जो आपने कही हैं वो कमेंट में भी ये बातें शायद पहले आपने खुद ही बोली हुई हैं जो परसेंटेज मैंने बताई. सबसे पहली बात तो डॉक्टर अचल गुलाटी बोस, आप NMC में रहे और वो रहे. एक रिक्वेस्ट ये है कि अगर आप भी अभी भी एक अथॉरिटी उस लेवल पे बात कर सकें. मेडिकल एथिक्स के नाम पे हिपोक्रेटिक ओथ की बजाय मुझे लगता है हमें ज़्यादा जरूरत है मेडिकल एथिक्स एंड लॉ का एक चैप्टर मस्ट होना चाहिए, या इस पे कुछ ना कुछ करना चाहिए. एक चीज़. दूसरी सर, कंसेंट फॉर्म की हमने जो बात की, शायद नहीं, कि डॉक्यूमेंटेशन में बहुत ज़रूरी है, उसकी लैंग्वेज में बताना उसको बहुत ज़रूरी है. इट इज़ मैंडेटरी. नॉट ओनली दिस थिंग, इट शुड बी रीड आउट and it should be mentioned that verbally it has been read out, told, and not only the signature, try to take thumb impression also, and do have some third person also whenever feasible, whenever possible, because I'm facing these things daily. They deny कि जी मुझे तो रूटीन में बता. Then do one thing, just एक सिग्नेचर ना लें, आप उससे ये लिखवाएं, एक लाइन ही लिखवानी है, एक इतना कॉलम जरूर खाली छोड़े कि मुझे पढ़ के या मुझे बता के या बोल के सुनाया, बताया गया, मेरी भाषा में बताया गया. एंड लेट हिम और समबडी एल्स राइट, सो दैट ही डजंट से कि खाली एक सिग्नेचर मेरे से करा लिया, मुझे क्या पता जी ऊपर क्या क्या कंसेंट फॉर्म में लिखा हुआ था. एक सबसे बड़ा इशू है, और नई रिसेंट जो है, जो जब मैंने गुड़गांव आज से 2.5 साल पहले ज्वाइन किया, तो पहली नेग्लिजेंस की कंप्लेंट जब आई थी डॉक्टर बाजपेयी, डॉक्टर गुलाटी, वो दैट वाज ए रेफरल केस, एम्बुलेंस से रिलेटेड. तो एक इस चीज़ पे हम नहीं ध्यान देते. जब ट्रांसफर्स और रेफरल्स होते हैं, हम उस पर एक बहुत बड़ी, हमारे में एक्चुअली उतनी आदत नहीं रहती है कि जानने का जो वाकई जो ट्रांसफ़र हो रहा है या रेफरल्स हमने कराया, उसकी एक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी वाली बात. और आपने एक बार बार बात कही कम्युनिकेशंस, मैं इसको थोड़ा सा इसके साथ ऐड करना चाहूँगा. इट इज़ नॉट ओनली द पुअर आउटकम, पुअर आउटकम से ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट प्रॉब्लम जो है वो है हमारी पुअर कम्युनिकेशन, जो शायद हम सब ने बार बार ये बात बोली है. और आप शायद वो मेरा साथी है ना डॉक्टर अनुज, वो बार बार कहते रहते हैं जब हम ऑफिस में बैठे होते हैं, जब कोई ज़्यादा बात करते हैं, तो डोंट बी गॉड, भगवान ना बने. भगवान तो घंटी है, 10वीं फिल्म में बताया था ना वो अभिषेक बच्चन ने, तो भगवान तो घंटी है. डोंट बी गॉड, डोंट बी लथार्जिक. अभी सर ने भी बोला, डॉक्टर बाजपेयी ने भी कहा, जब बैड आउटकम एक्सपेक्टेड हो ना हो, बैड हो तब तो बहुत ज़रूरी है. यू शुड टेक राउंड्स, फेस द अटेंडेंट्स, और पर्टिकुलरली जब आपको मालूम आउटकम बैड हो रहा तो उस वक्त और ज़्यादा ज़रूरी. इट इज़ मोर इम्पोर्टेंट एट दैट टाइम टू टेक राउंड्स, आपके लिए बहुत ज़रूरी, स्पेशली ऐसे में. सर ने खुद बोला भी कि आई कॉन्टैक्ट, उसको एम्पैथी ये दो ना कि यू आर केयरिंग फॉर देम. वो कहावत है ना, पूरे हिंदुस्तान में आप किसी पार्ट को बिलोंग करते हो, दे विल से यार डॉक्टर ने कोशिश तो बहुत करी थी, डॉक्टर बड़ा अच्छा था, लेकिन जो भी था वो जब ही होगा तो इट्स पॉसिबल व्हेन वी शो एम्पैथी एंड टेक राउंड्स. और एक चीज़ जो आपने गिरीश जी मेंशन भी करी, और शायद हम उस पर इतना ध्यान नहीं देते, पर्टिकुलरली फॉलोअप के टाइम पे जो डायग्नोसिस के फॉलोअप, ना केवल डायग्नोसिस को रिवाइज करना, वो जो फॉलोअप पे इन्वेस्टिगेशंस को फॉलो करना, और क्रॉस रेफरल्स को हमने देखना कि क्रॉस रेफरल में क्या डायग्नोसिस में कुछ चेंज हुआ या नहीं हुआ. और मैं एक बात और बताऊं, एक नेग्लिजेंस, जब मैं फरीदाबाद सीएमओ हुआ करता था उस टाइम की एक नेग्लिजेंस, हमारे किसी साथी ने, ये प्रॉब्लम थी ईएनटी की, और पेशेंट वाज एडमिटेड अंडर फिजिशियन, और इशू इस तरह से क्रिएट होते होते वो नेग्लिजेंस जब कोर्ट में हुआ, वो फिजिशियन आज तक उससे नहीं छूट पाया. इमीडिएटली जिस दिन क्रॉस रेफरल हुआ था, यू शुड हैव हैंडेड ओवर ऑफिशियली भी, आप डॉक्यूमेंटेशन में भी आपको हैंड ओवर कर देना चाहिए था. और सर मैं एक चीज़ से थोड़ा सा एग्री नहीं करता, वी शुड नेवर यूज एब्रीवेशंस, क्योंकि सर मैंने एक चीज़ महसूस करी है. कल परसों मैं अपने ही एक बात कहने लग रहा था, हम भी कोई ट्रेनिंग दे रहे थे, एक एनएससी नाम, लेटेस्ट एग्जांपल पे बात कर रहा हूँ, एनएससी. जहाँ तक मुझे लगता है जो पुराने साथी हैं और लोग भी होंगे, और डॉक्टर विजय आपको भी पता होगा, जब हम वहाँ स्टूडेंट थे या रजिस्ट्रार थे रोहतक में, एनएससी अपने को मिलते थे, समझ गए ना, नेशनल सेविंग सर्टिफिकेट टू इनकम टैक्स के नाम पे देते थे. और हमारे यहाँ इसका पता नहीं कोई टर्म यूज़ हो सकती होगी मेडिसिन में, और जब हम कल ट्रेनिंग में यूज़ कर रहे थे तो उसने बोला कि नियरेस्ट सब सेंटर, जबकि हकीकत में MOHFW की साइट पे नोशनल सब सेंटर उसका ये. सो लेट्स नॉट यूज, लेट्स मेक ए क्लियर कट डिसीजन, वी शुड नेवर यूज एब्रीवेशंस. इट शुड बी डिसाइडेड, क्लियर हो जाना चाहिए, कभी नहीं यूज करना चाहिए. एक लास्ट में जो चीज़ आपने बोली, मैं उसमें एक चीज़ ऐड करना चाहूँगा. यस, गुड, वी शुड ऑलवेज, जब भी नोट्स लिखें, बस एक बात हमेशा याद रखना, डेट एंड टाइम दोनों लिखना चाहिए. यू शुड ऑलवेज मेंशन टाइम. आप दिन में 2 बार राउंड करें, 3 बार करें, 1 बार करें, हमेशा टाइम जरूर लिखें. और एक और बात भी है, मैंने हमेशा महसूस किया है, मे बी बीइंग ए फिजिशियन वाले तौर पे मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, और शायद कार्डियोलॉजी में भी मैंने यही महसूस किया, जब मेरी एक आदत रही, और उसकी वजह से मेरा एक कलीग, एक साथी गायनेकोलॉजिस्ट बची इसकी वजह से. मैंने लिखा कि किसी को क्लिनिकली जो आपकी फाइंडिंग्स हैं, मैं हमेशा ये चाहता हूँ, बीइंग ए डॉक्टर, एक अपर हैंड आप हमेशा रखें कि क्लिनिकली आई फील दिस. Because all of you can remember, I think so, डॉक्टर विजय, मैं इसलिए बार बार नाम ले रहा हूँ, आप वहाँ थे और आपको मेरी शायद थोड़ा सबूत कर सकें, और आप दोनों हमसे सीनियर रहे हैं, तो सर आप बता पाए, शायद 80 से 82 से पहले तो हमारे पास अल्ट्रासाउंड था ही नहीं इंडिया की, अगर हम बात करें, और 86 से पहले अपने पीजीआई रोहतक में नहीं आया हुआ था। तो सर उससे पहले भी हम अपेंडिक्स तो देखते थे, ऑपरेट तो हम करते ही थे। That diagnosis was also clinical diagnosis. So please do mention whatever you are feeling clinically. These 3 things or 4 things which I could add up, that's all, nothing else, please.
थैंक यू डॉक्टर यादव। सर आप कुछ पूछना चाहते हैं? आप वो ले लीजिए माइक।
सर पहली बात मैं ये कहूँगा that nobody is paying to the question of violence on doctors. It's a criminal thing and nobody is taking action. You tell me any patient ever or his attendants ever prosecuted? No. You give me a single example where an action has been taken and doctor has been bitten. Number one. Number two, my request to all my colleagues, doctors, juniors, lovables is that follow NHBA guidelines strictly. But once your file is taken up for scrutiny by a board, and I am dealing with 40 critical patients, care patients, there are certain lacunae likely to happen. Sir is telling some, but I can tell more than that. But attendants are not aware. And I give you an example, patient, multiple traumas, treated, seizures, everything, goes home, and return form is filed that all satisfaction and 100 marks, not even a single mistake. And she stops medicines at home, and 4th day she dies because of status epilepticus. Case is put on me, PMC, Chief Minister, everybody, and per person itself is a judge who is filing the case. And he's not any way related, but he filed such for the 50 complaints. कहाँ जाओगे अब कोर्ट में केस?
Can we limit ourselves to the topic?
डॉक्टर्स के साथ too much हो रहा है, and what we are trying is
it's a very
to
important
scare the
topic,
doctors.
but it's a separate topic in itself, sir.
Yes.
So if there are any more questions, let us limit ourselves to just 2 more questions based upon how to avoid litigation. If there are any queries, if there are no more queries, I think maybe then we can after that come to the close of the session. One last question, Dr. Anirban.
It is very easy for us to do these things, but in private practice and all, it requires a huge amount of time. So time becomes a very major constraint in following these guidelines. So it is all possible, but then the thing is that we will either have to increase our charges tremendously because it will take time, and who is going to pay for that time? Once you get into litigation, you are absolutely in hell, of course. But at the same time, on a daily basis, to document everything and do everything, even in an OPD, it becomes very difficult.
Anirban, I think Dr. Girish has very well said about the documentation. Yes. Girish, very briefly, if we can just answer.
डॉक्टर साहब, अगर आप 10 मिनट एक पेशेंट पे या 5 मिनट या 2 मिनट पेशेंट पे निकालेंगे, दैट विल बी मोर देन अगर आपको एक नोटिस किसी काउंसिल का, एक बार कंज्यूमर कोर्ट का या हाई कोर्ट का, पुलिस का एक बार नोटिस आ जाएगा ना आपके पास, देन ऑफ कोर्स यू विल केम टू नो कि है क्या ये। और अल्टीमेटली सर केस तो डिसाइड वहाँ पे कोर्ट में कहीं पे भी डॉक्यूमेंट के हिसाब से होगा ना। आप कहते रहो कि मैंने पेशेंट को ठीक करा, नोबडी डाउट, बट अल्टीमेटली द हैरेसमेंट केस विल बी डिसाइडेड, कन्विक्शन आपका उसी डॉक्यूमेंट के ऊपर होगा सर। सो इट इज इन द सेफ। अगर हम रात को आराम से सोना चाहते हैं तो कम से कम एक उसमें टाइम एक्स्ट्रा लगा दीजिए। और व्हाट अबाउट डॉक्टर यादव ने जब बताया कंसेंट का, बिकॉज कि वी थॉट के कंसेंट की कोई वैल्यू नहीं है। समीरा कोहली केस सुप्रीम कोर्ट का केस है और अबाउट द कंसेंट, इफ द कंसेंट इज नॉट प्रॉपर, कंसेंट इज नॉट वैलिड, यू कैन नॉट टच द पेशेंट। लीव असाइड ऑपरेशन की तो बात ही बात होता हूँ, यू कैन नॉट टच द पेशेंट इफ द कंसेंट इज नॉट वैलिड और लीगल। और कंसेंट में डॉक्टर के सिग्नेचर नहीं होते, कई बार पेशेंट के सिग्नेचर नहीं होते, कई बार प्रोसीजर का लिखा ही नहीं होता कि व्हाट इज द प्रोसीजर। इट इज जस्ट अ ब्लैंक कंसेंट एंड ऑन द ब्लैंक कंसेंट पेशेंट इज गिविंग सिग्नेचर और अ थंब इंप्रेशन एंड द कंसेंट इज इन द इंग्लिश। सर डॉक्टर साहब, आप सर डॉक्टर साहब मैं कह रहा हूँ कंसेंट पेशेंट नहीं दे रहा, आप मत करो ऑपरेट सर.
I think what Girish has said, Anirban, to close on the issue, gone are the days of the consent. I am willing to undergo any kind of surgery under any kind of anesthesia by any kind of surgeon, the risks of which have been explained to me. Those days are gone. I am reminded of a movie, Dil Apna और प्रीत पराई, जिसमें एक गाना था, अजीब दास्तां है ये, कहाँ शुरू कहाँ खत्म, ये मंजिलें हैं कौन सी, न तुम समझ सके न हम. This topic is going to go on for times immemorial. There are litigation, there are ethicals, there are issues, individual issues involved. But the bottom line, if we come down to, there was a movie known as The Dirty Picture, in which a dialogue was, the best thing is entertainment, entertainment, entertainment. No. In medicine practice, it is documentation, communication, bethicalism. Bethicalism, be-ethicalism. Bethicalism, integrity, and your expertise and empathy.
Dr.
Once we
Gulati,
have all these things, I think we shall be reaching the end road. Remember, medical practice, surgical practice in India is like driving on a crazy Indian highway. It is fraught with dangers at every turn and every crossing. So you have to be careful, protect your back, and that is what the bottom line is. So again, we go back to space, protect ourselves, but stay on the earth and protect ourselves to the very extent. I thank Dr. Girish.
Dr. Girish, thank you. And Dr. Gulati, last word ये कहूँगा, being a chairman of a negligence board क्यों officially और अभी Dr. वाजपेयी ने भी कहा, और आपकी dirty picture को यहाँ खत्म करते हैं. It is only one word what sir was saying, entertainment, entertainment. Let me tell you, negligence board, whether it is MNBK, if it comes to me as a chairperson or in the court, it is documentation, 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 documentation. Thank you.
So thank you so much for a lovely session. Thank you, everybody.